Libya. One of the key components will be a U.S. super ship. And on special segment tonight, Fred Francis will take us on a tour of this remarkable high-tech vessel, the USS Yorktown. Tonight is about one of the ships on alert in the Mediterranean at this hour, a top-secret ship, a super ship, the USS Yorktown. As NBC News Pentagon correspondent Fred Francis reports now, it's the high-tech nerve center of our entire military presence in that area.
It turns like a yacht, tracks more than 100 enemies at once, and the Navy says can shoot them down like targets in an arcade game. The USS Yorktown, an Aegis-class cruiser, the Navy calls it the most formidable warship ever built. And already it has become a factor in the war on terrorism.
We're in a terrorist business now. That's a tough business. You never know when some guy's going to come flying out with a Piper Cub or some damn thing.
When the Italian cruise ship Achille Lauro was hijacked, the Yorktown shadowed it off the coast of Egypt and would have blocked its path to Libya.
When the Palestinian hijackers were flown out of Egypt, this ship was not only able to track it 800 miles across the Mediterranean to Sicily, but it was also able to send that radar picture of the Egyptian airliner to every other U.S. naval ship and radar plane operating in the Mediterranean.
But the Yorktown's real mission is to fight the big war. If there is a confrontation in the Mediterranean, the Navy believes this ship holds the key to victory.
You got air contact inbound at 35.
Above the bridge is the most accurate radar of its size in the world today. The Navy says the Yorktown brings the idea of Star Wars, electronic warfare on a grand scale, down to the surface of the ocean.
It's a real capability and no longer some pie-in-the-sky Star Wars concept.
Commanders like Admiral Brest have always worried about the vulnerability of their floating airfields to low-flying missiles and sea-skimming aircraft. Now Aegis is a protective shield for the carrier battle group. The Navy says nothing goes undetected in its defense zone of 260 miles in all directions. Not even the Navy's newest fighter bomber, the F-A-18, with its sophisticated missiles. Pilot Byron Duff has tried.
There's probably an awful lot of rocket scientists in the Soviet Union, a lot of midnight oil being burnt up in Moscow on just that question. How are they going to beat Aegis?
We haven't figured out how to do that yet ourselves.
The Yorktown's captain, Carl Anderson, runs the billion-dollar ship not from the bridge, but from this computerized command center. This is where the battle will be fought. The blue display screens tracking hundreds of ships and planes simultaneously over a wide area.
Our operational area could in fact extend from one end of the Mediterranean now to the other end of the Mediterranean.
The Yorktown's radar system can do that by incorporating the radar picture sent to it from this E-2C plane flying from the Coral Sea. By linking the two radars, thousands of square miles can be watched.
This is the real no-fooling boundaries of these countries.
In a battle, the Yorktown could watch aircraft taking off from airfields in Libya and shoot them down before they reach the aircraft carrier. And if there are too many targets for Captain Anderson to handle, the computer fires on its own. The hope is the weapons will never have to be used in a big war or against terrorists. Admiral Brest.
Once we begin to adopt the irrationality of the terrorists and the terrorist nations and groups and cliques and clans, we lose what we stand for in the United States.
Another officer put it a different way. The Yorktown, he said, should not be drawn into a fight which might be resolved some other way just to hear the sound of our guns. Fred Francis, NBC News, aboard the USS Yorktown.
A few weeks ago, an American cruiser and a destroyer entered the Soviet waters of the Black Sea. The Soviets at that time said it was an attempt to spy by American military. The United States said simply it was a right of innocent passage. Many of the same words that they've been using to describe what they've been doing in the Mediterranean waters off Libya. So not only are relationships between nations sometimes involved, but there are tricky international legal questions as well. And Richard Valeriani has been looking into those as best he can tonight at the State Department. Richard, what are you learning from the State Department lawyers, or are they talking at all?
Tom, the State Department lawyers aren't saying anything, and while the administration insists that it is conducting naval maneuvers in the Gulf of Sidra in order to assert the principle of free navigation in international waters, the State Department has ordered its legal advisors not to talk to the press, not even to explain the legal background of the policy. and that legal background is that for many years, most nations claim sovereignty over 3 miles of territorial waters off their shores. That so-called 3-mile limit was determined by the range of a cannon shot in the old days. In 1958, the 3-mile limit was included in a Geneva Convention and became official international law. But then many countries began claiming a 12-mile limit. The United States objected to that and said it would challenge those countries. And Libya began claiming the entire Gulf of Sidra as what is known in international law as historic waters. Here, ironically, is a headline from the Washington Post in August of 1979, 6.5 years ago, saying planned American naval exercises were causing concern in Libya. But those exercises did not extend to the Gulf of Sidra. In 1982, negotiations were completed on a new international treaty which made the 12-mile limit official. It also set up a system for a peaceful resolution of disputes, such as the American challenge to Libya's claim of sovereignty over the Gulf of Sidra. But the United States never signed the new treaty because of objections to some other provisions. Experts in international law say that Libya's claim of sovereignty over the Gulf of Sidra almost certainly would not hold up in an international court of law. But at the same time, they point out that the United States has not tried to challenge Libya's claim peacefully as current international law requires. Tom?
Good evening, everyone. I'm Terry Zahn. I'm here at the Norfolk Naval Base where, surprisingly, things are pretty much normal. Diana will join us in just a few minutes. Normal, except for the fact that there are probably a fewer ships behind me at some of the piers. Right now, some 30 Navy ships, many from this base, are just outside the Gulf of Sidra or just inside it, off the coast of Libya. In harm's way, as you might say. Libya claims that Gulf as its own. The U.S. does not recognize that claim, and yesterday the dispute led to shooting. As you know, Libya reportedly fired 6 surface-to-air missiles at U.S. planes. All of them missed, but in retaliation, the United States attacked the missile base at Sirte and sank 2 Libyan patrol boats. That was up to 6 p.m. our time yesterday. This is day 2, and day 2 went almost exactly as did day 1. The 3 carriers launched aircraft through the night, the Norfolk-based Coral Sea and America, and the Florida-based Saratoga. But the first action involved the cruiser Yorktown, also based in Norfolk. At 12 minutes after 6 our time, early morning there, the Yorktown fired a surface-to-surface missile at another Libyan patrol boat, this time outside the Gulf itself. Debris from the patrol boat was sighted later. About 40 minutes after that, the U.S. launched a second attack against the missile battery at Sirte, which was hit yesterday. 2 A-7 attack jets from the Saratoga again fired HARM missiles at the site. The missiles lock in on the radar guiding the Libyan missile to its target, and it follows the beam like railroad tracks into the radar installation itself. The last reported incident came at 1:07 this morning, our time. 2 Oceania-based A-6s from VA 55 and 85 attacked another patrol boat near the port of Benghazi, leaving it dead in the water and burning. There were also reports of another patrol craft being attacked, the 5th in 2 days.
Questions from Pentagon officials this evening that the confrontation between the United States and Libya in the Gulf of Sidra may now be over. According to one defense official, the fact that Libya has launched no new missiles in almost 18 hours indicates that it has given up challenging the American right to sail in that Gulf. If that is true, he said, the United States has made its point and United States naval operations can end. But earlier today, as NBC's Fred Francis reports from the Pentagon now, American forces were persuaded they were under attack, so they opened fire.
The 6th Fleet controlled the Gulf of Sidra for a second day by using a blanket of electronic jamming and a variety of high-tech missiles. Despite erroneous Pentagon reports, the Libyans have not fired a missile since yesterday. However, the cruiser Yorktown intercepted a Libyan patrol boat just after midnight. The Yorktown's captain believed the Libyan craft was headed for an aircraft carrier and destroyed it with 2 Harpoon missiles. A half hour later, American planes picked up a radar signal coming from the Soviet-built SAM-5 missile site, which had been hit the day before. American attack aircraft hit the SAM site a second time, using HARM missiles like this one, which home in on the Libyan radar signal. And another Libyan patrol boat, heavily armed with missiles, was intercepted just after daybreak by planes from the Coral Sea and the Saratoga. Pentagon spokesman Robert Sims.
Damage to that was considerable. The boat was dead in the water, on fire.
This electronic countermeasures airplane, the EA-6B Prowler, is being used by the fleet in the Gulf. The Prowler puts out such a potent electronic jamming signal that one Pentagon official said all 4 of the Libyans' coastal radars and everything else in the country has been blinded since Sunday. The Prowler is also the reason the Soviet missiles fired at fleet aircraft have not come close. The Prowler so badly scrambles the lock-on guidance system of the SAM-5 missiles that they go out of control. The radar jamming is one reason Libyan MiGs have not challenged the fleet. Another reason, according to Helmut Sonnenfeld, is that the Soviets are holding Gaddafi back.
And I think it is quite possible that the Soviets would just as soon not have another embarrassment in having quite modern Soviet equipment do badly against the United States.
And Tom, Soviet influence did not stop the commander of the Libyan Air Force from sending this telex message to the commander of the 6th Fleet, Admiral Kelso. The telex reads, "Unless the aggressive acts are stopped, we are bound to destroy your carriers. In doing that, we will have the political and military support of the world states. Best regards, Commander-in-Chief, Libyan Arab Air Force." And Tom, late word here tonight is that if Gaddafi does act responsibly, the 6th Fleet is ready to go home.